Support for this program is provided by
Hi, I'm Will Glover, One Detroit producer and host of the Future of Work Town Halls. I'm here at DPTV headquarters working on a new look for next year's Town Halls, so as I look to our future, let's also take a look back at 2022's Future of Work Town Halls. In the 2 years of navigating the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic and workforce landscape has changed drastically. Small businesses disappeared, others thrived. The thinking behind what work is and should be came into question as people at all levels of the workforce reevaluated. In April of 2022, we decided to ask the question, what is the future of work? In our monthly town halls, we've talked to seasoned experts and professionals currently navigating big economic workforce questions so that we could start with a strong foundation for our future of work coverage so that workers and employers can be empowered with useful information to help create a brighter future for Michigan. Our first conversation looked at where Michigan ranked and how we need to build our future workforce with Chad Livengood. According to Forbes, who ranks Michigan 40 based on when they look at the GDP of the state for 10 years, 5 years, quarter over quarter, like I said, they have us coming in at 40. The U.S. News has us 22nd in business environment, 41st in employment, and 25th in growth. CNBC has us 11th, and my favorite is Thrillist, which has us at number 1, but that may not be the most accurate depiction of the state. So my first question to you is, does this matter? Do rankings really play that big of a role in how our state's perceived, and might that affect our business competitiveness?
Particularly when you're a policymaker, you want to look at these data and you want to be able to benchmark Michigan versus other states. Right now, there is, at least in my mind, sort of an obsession with some of the southern states that are seemingly on the rise, particularly when it comes to the automotive industry. Just think about back in last fall when Ford Motor Company announced they're going to invest $11 billion in 4 different plants in Kentucky and Tennessee. That got a lot of policymakers out of their seats, because here's a hometown automaker building a new electric vehicle assembly plant near Memphis with a battery plant, and then more battery plants around south of Louisville, Kentucky, in order to spur the next generation of automotive innovation with EVs. And so that they looked at some of the people want to look at some of the stats related to those states to see what is Tennessee doing that we're not doing. A common thing people talk about is, well, they have a lower income tax, or Florida doesn't have an income tax. Everyone always wants to gauge against that. I think you have to kind of go back and look at educational attainment and focus less on what is the tax policy and get a little more focused on where do Michigan workers stand as far as being prepared in the workplace to compete with other workers in other states and other countries, and that the pandemic has greatly disrupted that. You can be a software engineer in Marquette, Michigan. You do not have to be a software engineer and live in Royal Oak and commute to a job at the GM Warren Tech Center anymore. Right. GM will hire you, and it doesn't matter where you live, basically, as long as you have a good internet connection, which I was struggling with myself today. But you can get by and do these jobs remotely increasingly, and so now it's just a matter of where do we position Michigan so people want to live here, raise their kids here, and when it comes to raising your kids and education quality, we are not a top 10 state. We are closer to a bottom 10 state, and
Yes.
that's what's really kind of increasingly concerning for people as we're sort of looking at the long-term trajectory of the state.
Right. And so, because we have been so accustomed to having the automotive industry and kind of, owning that, those jobs and how that innovation goes to a degree, not anymore with, electric vehicles. Before we get into talking about developing talent and, what we could be, what was the last time where Michigan was in a really good position where we were, leading the country, if we were leading the country, when it comes to our business competitive, to our wages, to, the places that people were able to live and enjoy and raise their families?
Yeah, I mean, on business competitive, all the different scales, we are vastly better than we were, to say the least. Um, a big part of that is tax policy. Think back to 2011 when then Republican Governor Rick Snyder and the Republican legislature got rid of what it was called the Michigan business tax and went to a simplified 6% corporate income tax. And it was a $1.8 billion a year tax cut for businesses. They've made major reforms for property taxes for businesses. There has been an immense number of policies that have boosted the business climate for Michigan. Which some of those rankings said we're 22nd. We were 42nd 10 years ago. I mean, we were in the bottom 10 then, for sure. But this educational attainment is really starting to creep up on us.
Whether it's a 4-year or 2-year college degree, certificate program, an apprenticeship, developing skills beyond high school is paramount. But that begs the question, do we have the resources to train and develop our current and future workforce to make Michigan an economic contender nationwide? Well, to do that, you need teachers, which is why I spoke with Ypsilanti Community School Superintendent Elena Zachary Ross, State Education Reporter for Chalkbeat, Tracy Morello, and Citizens Research Council of Michigan Research Director, Craig Thiel.
Michigan has been struggling for a long time. It's been in the bottom half of states as far as performance of schools. And Michigan students were really starting to gain some ground before the pandemic. They were catching up to other states. And then the pandemic just blew everything out of the water for everyone. So one of the biggest issues that we have in Michigan and elsewhere around the country is to help these kids catch up. They had 2 years of disjointed learning. Some kids were bounced back and forth between virtual and in-person learning a number of times. At the same time, we have districts are having a very hard time finding teachers.
Teachers used to come in. I mean, they are dedicated. They come in. When they were sick, they come in when they were stressed. And now teachers have learned during the pandemic, I have to first take care of myself. Their family situations might have changed. So although we have teachers who hold certificates in Michigan, we find that there are earlier retirements. There are people that are taking leaves. And so that has required us to need more staff in our buildings.
Is it a shortage or not? Because some of the work that you guys have done indicate that it's not as clear cut as simply being a shortage of teachers. So could you just explain that a little bit for us?
Just in summary, what we know is that certain schools in certain locations and certain classrooms are much more harder to fill with a qualified full-time instructor than other classrooms and districts and schools. We can talk about the details of that, but I think that's an important nuance to understand. And just, if it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways, the research literature, again, suggests that the number one input into the performance of our K-12 students throughout their careers is having a highly qualified teacher in front of them, leading instruction, developing curriculum, leading instruction, helping students that may not be on the path to success, and intervening when that's necessary. So the teacher is the most important component in our whole K through 12 education system.
Say we solve the teacher shortages and have everything we need to teach anyone the skills that pay the middle class bills. Will they keep those talents here? Our town hall about placemaking looked at Michigan's amenities for young professionals, recreation and safety for families, and public transit. I talked to TechTown President and CEO Ned Stabler, Detroit Future City CEO Anika Goss, author of Reimagining Detroit and former business columnist John Gallagher, and planning director of the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments Kevin Vitrano. Here's what they said.
There's general agreement that placemaking involves a variety of building types and sizes and uses. So you're mixing retail, residential, civic, entertainment, commercial. Almost everything but industrial. There needs to be a variety of transportation options. So you have not limited to cars, but including buses, trams, bicycles, bike lanes. The district needs to be very walkable and a very heavy emphasis on what's good for pedestrians. So wider sidewalks, a lot of sidewalk cafes.
What are we talking about when we're talking about what makes a good place? What are the physical elements that go into that type of planning and makes a place attractive for someone to want to live?
When we think of placemaking, we should be thinking about communities that are amenity rich, that are places where you would want to raise your family, that you can thrive no matter where you are in your life, whether you're a single person, as a single young person or a single older person.
Ned, I'd like to bring you in to talk about what creating good places and designing and developing places around those accommodations, what does that do for business?
Businesses, especially, all businesses thrive on people. So it could be people walking by that are customers, or it could be employees that are coming to work in an office location. And in both cases, those folks are looking for the same thing. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate this. We think of it as something that they have in other places, that it's in, as Anika said, in Europe or in bigger cities or whatnot. But placemaking to some extent is pretty simple. Is places that people feel comfortable, that have safety, that have lighting, that have crosswalks, that are designed with the current residents in mind. Now you say, that will attract other people. Well, sure, because people want to be around those things.
Director of Planning for the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, Kevin Vitrano, points out that this isn't just a matter of having more cafes and nicer crosswalks.
What we need to be thinking about is how are we designing our spaces and our land use, regardless of where you are in the region. Are our roads and our sidewalks and our transportation networks supporting places that people feel comfortable, people feel safe, that are accessible? I think that word has come up a couple times. And accessible is for all ages. We're an aging region, we're an aging nation. And that's not anything that's new. We've been thinking about it for a long time, but we have to make sure that our places are accessible, open, and equitable for all.
We know we've got to build our teaching core to prepare Michigan workers. We need to make sure we're creating places and spaces that make people want to come, stay, and raise a family. And when it comes to raising a family, Michigan's recent legislation to help families with childcare costs could be a major attraction, which is why guest host Trudy Gallant-Stokes talked about that with Inform CEO Terry Barclay and Michigan Women's Commissioner Charity Dean.
In August, Governor Whitmer passed the free child care expansion, making 40% of Michigan families eligible for free or low-cost child care. So that's where we'll start the conversation today. I'm a third generation working woman, and now I have two daughters who are working women. One is a new mom, and I just find it extremely frustrating that we seem like we keep having to have these conversations. How do the two of you feel? Does it feel like two steps forward and then one step back? Are we making any progress?
The causes for that are many, but I do think that childcare is a central concern for men and women in the workforce. The stresses on families, whether they could afford childcare or not, even in many cases when they could afford childcare, there was sort of a lack of stability because of the pandemic, and they would not know from day to day whether those services were going to be available. So there's no question that if we want to solve the talent shortage, we need to look at what services are we providing to support healthy families in Michigan.
We still have so much to go. Women unemployment rate is still higher than men's unemployment rate. But the first step is saying, how are we looking at who's eligible for assistance for childcare, right? And how do we make sure that even the working poor have access to this great resource? I think, as a Michigan Women's Commissioner, we spent a lot of time when we were when the governor was first elected. We went around the state and we held conversations for women. And this is pre-pandemic. And we said, what are your issues? We had conversations in the UP. We had conversations in Grand Rapids. I hosted one in Detroit. And, back then, the Michigan Women's Commission was placed in civil rights. And as a result of all these conversations, what we realized and what we know and what we're talking about today is that women's issues are economic issues.
Although there are challenges, Michigan is heading into the future, and the evidence is in places like Centropolis Accelerator, a company dedicated to helping small businesses, inventors, and entrepreneurs develop, prototype, and get their products on shelves.
Yeah, I think it might seem odd to a lot of people with us being a manufacturing state that we didn't have an incubator or accelerator program focused on developing physical products and manufacturing them here in Michigan, because that's our bench strength, right? That's what we're really good at. Not just manufacturing, but the product development process to prepare a product for manufacturing. We're really the best in the world at it. I mean, I would compare Michigan and the Detroit area to any place in the world that is innovative, Germany, Japan, and other areas, in designing, engineering, testing, and driving cost and complexity out of products and ensuring that they're going to be durable and reliable. We're really the best in the world at it.
And he would know, because he's been in this field most of his life.
What he did here is he actually created a clutch that when you pull on these gives 300 pounds of resistance, which is amazing. Yeah, I was really born and raised into manufacturing. I grew up as a machinist. I've been in manufacturing and product development my whole life. My last job in private industry was running an international vehicle design engineering firm.
Tell us what the impact of Centropolis has been, because this is the only place that's helping people with the nuts and bolts of how to manufacture a product and get it to market.
Yeah, so we've been in operation Centropolis for 5 years now, and the impact we've had has just been amazing. Every company that has come in here that has had an idea for a physical product that we've made an investment of time and money in has officially got their product to market. That's almost unheard of, even for software companies, and very difficult to do with hardware or physical products. So we've been able to launch over 36 businesses. We've had the opportunity to get 50 new physical products out to market. And more importantly, as we help these people with their ideas finally get a product to market that's made in Michigan, it's also having a trickle effect to those in the local supply chain. Many of those companies are not manufacturing themselves. We connect them to local suppliers. Our clients alone over the last 5 years have contracted 366 contracts to Michigan manufacturers, amounting over $24 million. So the economic multiplier of our work is rather significant to the local manufacturing community.
People like Dan Radomski at Centropolis Accelerator are essential to Michigan's future, not just for the work they do, but their ability to attract people to Michigan. And Dan's not the only one. Kelsey and Cassidy Tucker are two sisters that run a successful high-end fashion company from their offices above a Detroit Boys and Girls Club. They make sure to tell their industry partners at places like New York Fashion Week about Michigan's endless possibilities.
What about New York, Los Angeles makes these places able to be a fashion hub that we don't have here?
I think that just the way that the mindset is of like you leave Detroit and you go to New York to like build your business. Like that's kind of what people think already is like, oh, I can like get educated here or I'll go to school in New York, but I'm going to stay there after and like build my network there and then one day come back and have a family here. But if we had the resources and all these things that we've been talking about in this conversation and like there are so many people, creatives who are entrepreneurs, like they're like, you know, grinding and like living off of like not enough money, you know, to live their dream. But it's like without those resources and stuff here, like we can all keep working towards these things, but it's like without the glue to like connect everyone, the resources, the pipeline, then it's like people are going to leave and they're going to go think that they need to do that in New York and then come back here eventually. Whereas if we had that infrastructure, they could do it here and stay here.
Do you see your cohort coming here? What would get them on board?
Yeah, we actually say this to everyone we meet in New York. We're always like, you got to come visit us, come to Detroit, come to Michigan. And actually a lot of people are interested by it, or they'll say, oh, I've been there. I haven't been there in a while. I heard that there's a lot going on. And like, that's kind of, you know, but we actually are bringing people here and showing them around. And I think that's another big thing that we should probably invest more time and effort in. You know, really, if the fashion industry is something we want to take seriously, I think, you know, we should. But if that is decided, I think we seriously need to think about the gatekeepers or those in the larger industry that can, you know, help the city get to the next level and plug in and bring them here and show them all these things that are going on. You know, show them the industry club, fashion design industry club, working with, you know, youth, helping them get internships at Carhartt and product design collaborations with Fortune 500 brands. And let's show them, you know, the brands that are here making it and, you know, showcasing their work in New York Fashion Week. Let's show them the schools that are here, the workforce that's here, all the infrastructure that's here, and just ultimately the opportunity. Fashion's looking to be, you know, more inclusive. Fashion's looking to grow and be pushed in new boundaries, just given the climate and everything that's happened over the last couple of years. So let's be that solution. Let's do it. But we need to take it seriously, make a deliberate decision to do so, and then bring those people here. Show off what we're doing in a really meaningful way.
I hope you found this year of covering Michigan's future of work has been meaningful, thoughtful, and actionable in a way that helps brighten our future.
To see more of all the future of work content we couldn't get to today, go to onedetroitpbs.org/futureofwork.
And follow us on social media at One Detroit and me at Yes I'm Will. Thanks so much for joining me. For One Detroit, I'm Will Glover. I'll see you in the future.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
Support for this program is provided by